Welcome to In the Line of Fire with Saraj, a CEO, CXO, and a thought leadership series. This series is about real leaders, real talks, and real insights. This series is about getting into the gold mine of knowledge and lived experience of our senior executives and bring forth the best of their experiences. One thing I have learned over the period of time that the greatest lessons are not taught in the schools. They are not taught in the universities. They are the real experiences of the senior executives. They are the invisible inspiration. They are the invisible power to the business. These are the people who drive changes. These are the people who determine the future. In this effort, I have tried to reach out some of these senior executives, CEOs, and CXOs and thought leaders and requested them that why don't you join and let's talk about some of your experiences. With that, let's welcome our today's guest, Stanley Greene. Stanley is the founder and CEO of the Power Thinking Corporation, an executive coach, leadership strategist, speaker, and author who has dedicated his career to helping individuals and organizations build resilience, develop positive thinking. His work demonstrates that leadership is not simply about what we do. It begins with how we think, and that is the pivotal component of today's conversation. Today, we will explore the psychology of leadership, resilience, emotional intelligence, high-performance thinking, and what it truly takes to lead in a world defined by uncertainty and constant change. Stanley, welcome to In the Line of Fire with Saraj. I am honored and delighted to have you on the show, Stanley.
Saraj, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited about being with you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Stanley, for the audience.
Raj, thank you so much. I'm honored to be with you and excited about this opportunity to share. So I was born and raised in Philadelphia, birthplace of the United States of America. We just celebrated 250 years of existence a few days ago. And I graduated from the University of Pennsylvania, which is one of the Ivy League schools. And upon graduation, moved into the telecommunications industry. So that was my first industry. I worked in a number of capacities and as a young 20-something-year-old, supervised a crew of construction splicers who would go into the manholes underground and up on the bucket trucks, on the poles and the wires to connect them. We also, I was an engineer at a time when we were just getting into the technology that we all know today, fiber optics. So we learned that many years ago. I was in customer service, many different capacities, which then prepared me to move into a different industry. It was in the cable TV industry. And that's when I really get a test of what leadership is all about, because I had a complete company with various departments. And we did what we did there was in the internet, with the synthetic turf industry that built, football pitches, artificial football pitches, and for other sports as well. I was also a deputy treasurer doing public service for the state of Pennsylvania. And so that was a unique experience. And now I run Power Thinking.
So over the years, you have helped leaders, executives, organizations, and individuals strengthen one of the most powerful assets, not their strategy, not their technology, but their thinking. Today, I'd like to explore the journey behind that work and the philosophy that continues to inspire leaders around the world. How did that journey start? What was the trigger point from where you decided to help thousands and thousands of leaders across the globe?
It actually started at sports in college. I played basketball at the University of Pennsylvania, Division I basketball. So it's the highest level in college that you can play. So we would play against Duke University and Oklahoma, SC, University of Southern California, some of the top teams, Harvard, of course, in our league, Princeton, Yale. I was recruited by Yale, wound up going to the University of Pennsylvania. And I happened to play for a coach who went on to win 2 NBA championships. His name is Chuck Daly. In fact, the NBA has an award that's named after him that honors a coach that achieved a significant amount in their lifetime. So it was a great leader to study under when I was in college. He also coached what's called the Dream Team. And this was the first team that consisted of pros that played in the Olympics. So you had Michael Jordan, and he coached Larry Bird and Charles Barkley and all of the great players. And of course, they won the Olympic gold medal. So again, it was an honor. And through that, being part of his leadership and being mentored, I was able to make a big contribution to the University of Pennsylvania's basketball team as we went on to be ranked number 20 in the country and play in what's now called March Madness in the tournament. But a lot of lessons learned in the ups and downs of sports, as we all know about, is a World Cup that's going on, and tremendous highs and crushing lows that occur in sports. So a lot of lessons learned in terms of leadership, teamwork, and taking not getting too high when we win and not getting too low when you lose.
So every great leader every great leader at some point of time has that spark, and that spark decides that, yeah, I'm getting into this. Was there a spark, Stanley? You want to talk about that?
The spark for really focusing on leadership came when I worked for a huge company. I was in my early years with this company. It's called Verizon, major telecommunications company. It was all part of AT&T before they broke up the Bell system. I was there when they broke up the company initially and was involved in many of the projects there. But I remember senior executives saying that they wanted to create an environment where people look forward to going to work, that the focus was going to be on the people, because if we focus on the people, they will focus on making sure that the customers are not just satisfied, but delighted. So it was something that they said. In fact, they had an event one day when all the employees would get together and watch a performance of, these dancers, and it was called Up with People, because it's all about the people. But what I realized was that while key executives would say this, that the other systems and levers that communicated and touched people communicated the exact opposite, that they really didn't care about people. And so I felt, I want to one day show that what they're saying is true, that if you focus on the people, your results will be astronomical. And when I get that opportunity, I will show that it works. And I did get that opportunity ultimately.
So positive thinking, positive psychology, resilience, optimism, mental toughness, these are common phrases. When it comes to power thinking, which is like a couple of decades of your work and which has helped thousands of leaders across the globe, across industries, tell us what it means to start with for the audience, Stanley.
Sure. So what the reason why I called the company and created the company Power Thinking Corp is that the people view, and many business leaders view, emotional intelligence, resilience training, dealing with mindset, positivity as quote unquote soft skills, that they're nice to have. And I would argue that they are absolutely essential skills, that if we have those skills, that it translates to hard numbers and outcomes and results, the things that executives and leaders in business are most concerned about. We want to make sure our company grows. We want it to scale. We want to generate more revenue. And I named the company Power Thinking because the power that we have as leaders is empowering, when enabling people through helping them with their emotions, with their thinking, with their beliefs about themselves. The power in achieving results lie in what some executives would call those soft or nice to have skills, when they skills bring the power.
So, Stanley, this world is undergoing transformation. We are into a direction-less society, something like that. So a lot of change happening. The AI is happening. Transformation is happening. The industry and people are under stress. So from your perspective, what is the greatest leadership challenge that individuals and organizations are facing today or will continue to face? And then probably we would connect back to some of your thoughts.
Sure. Well, here's one thing that will always happen in corporations, but in our lives, both professional and personal, and that is change. It will always be change. And I can remember a time when I'd bring in my portable computer, the first ever. If you looked up, the world's first portable computer, it would be the Osborne. Portable, all right, but it was 26 pounds. It was like a portable sewing machine, and I would carry it to work at the telephone company when we had no computers. We did not have, there wasn't a computer on every desk. The only person that had a computer was essentially a word processor, and these were the people, the minute the secretaries that would type up your document. And people would say to me when I would type up my own document, because I took typing in school, anticipating that down the road that I would need it, they would say, "What are you typing for? That's secretary's work." Or "What are you doing? Playing Pac-Man or games on that computer?" And so over a period of about 5 to 10 years, it was just the computers were everywhere. People were expected to type up their own documents. And of course, it's kind of hard to hear today. And then we had the spreadsheets, where people would manually, work on paper, pencil and paper, and sheets of numbers. And then if they had to do a what if, if then the assumption, they would have to take hours to go back and change all the numbers that were dependent on that number. And of course, spreadsheets changed the game. So we're in another era. And folks were concerned that the jobs eliminated, and certainly certain functions. But then it ushered in another set of action. We're in that again with AI. And the fact of the matter is, it never goes away. And so our ability to adjust, to adapt, stay calm as these things happen, as the tool to embrace change, those are absolutely essential.
Stanley, we'll now get into the five-dimensional leadership and the first phase. What you have accomplished do not happen easily. There is a personal discipline, there's a personal mastery behind this. Tell us, how does your day look like?
Sure. Well, the first thing that happens in my day is that I practice gratitude. The fact that I'm here. I mean, just you may have heard over the weekend, we lost all of a sudden a key senator, a politician, and had a cardiac arrest in a bed that no one expected, no one saw coming, and he was gone. You know, uh, just like that. And so we just have to be ready to make sure that when we do get up in the morning, that we are grateful for the little things, like just being here. Hey, I have another opportunity. And having that mindset helps us to steer through, some of the setbacks that we're going to experience during the course of the day. If we are in sales, we're going to get a lot of rejection. If we're an executive, someone's going to come in and say, hey, this just happened, or our electricity went out, or we just found that we owe this major supplier money. I say that because I've been in situations where this happened. What happens is when you start your day with gratitude, being thankful for, it's just opening your eyes, being thankful, for your family and your friends, not necessarily be thankful for good health, because that may change. But what doesn't change is if we do wake up, it's the fact that we're up, the fact that we do have family and friends, and the fact that if we're doing the right things, we're helping people. And so those are things I'm thankful for, and it gives me the strength to get through many of the setbacks that we may experience during the course of the day.
Well, every time I talk to a senior executive, I come to know that they are great learners. They never stop learning. People keep learning for 20 years, 30 years. How did you continue to learn and stayed learning all the time?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's just part of the things that help me to ascend to, senior leadership position. So it's something that I continue to do because when I started to do that, everything changed for me. And it started years ago when I was working for a manager, and I had, a lot of apprehensions and fears, mostly about public speaking. I did not want to speak in front of people, more than four people at a time. And that hurt me. And my manager told me that, there were many folks who came into the company with me who were starting to move up, and I was not. And so as a result of that, I knew that I had to embrace a, a desire to learn and to grow. And so the first thing I started to learn about was about how to get comfortable speaking in front of groups. And one of our inner strengths of resilience is actually reaching out, connecting with others, taking action, to learn. So I joined a group called Toastmasters International. They're
Yeah.
all over the world and they help people with their speaking. I started to listen to various authors and folks who are considered positive people, like Brian Tracy, who had a book and a series of audio called The Psychology of Achievement. Then I wanted to learn about negotiating because that was going to be key. Roger Dawson, The Secrets of Power Negotiating. And it goes on, and that just continued. So I listened more to these kinds of presentations than and read books as opposed to kind of listening to music. Think and Grow Rich was another by
Mhm.
Napoleon Hill, a classic book that again gets back to our thinking and our imagery, our beliefs. So all great stuff, and it continues today.
I think the leadership is very demanding today. It can be very mentally demanding, and performance is very difficult to sustain over the period of time. And that requires a lot of mental, physical toughness. How do you maintain your physical energy, emotional well being, and overall balance while continue to lead and coach and inspire so many people, Stanley?
Well, we talked about the mental. So that's relatively easy because you can get out of the book and read, or as you're driving in the vehicle, you can listen to audio, you can listen on your device. So it's relatively easy. The more difficult thing to do to make sure that you're physically fit. And that helps us with our emotion regulation, our belief in ourselves. So when you're able to get out, ride a bike, and just walk. We had a dog, and our dog Shia takes me out on a walk. We about 4 times a day.
We talked about the physical, mental, emotional, and overall balance while continue to lead, coach, and inspire people. Is that a tough thing for you or for any leader?
Of course. So for we know about the mental, and there's still we have leaders who are leading that go beyond companies that are leading countries that can do a better job of regulating their emotions, that can do a better job of regulating their impulses. Very, very key. Having empathy. So those are key from a mental standpoint and emotional. But the physical is important as well. We just had a senator, and I may have mentioned that a little earlier, in the United States who passed away suddenly. It was a just returned from a long trip, and a few hours after returning, he suffered a cardiac related event and passed away. And when you see the person's my age, same age, you could tell that they really weren't, working out and, perhaps getting the good cardio and exercise and watching diet. Those things are very, very important because if you don't, the body will ultimately say, hey, I can't do this anymore. And we need our body to be able to help us through these very stressful times as leaders in making decisions and meeting with people, traveling, and so forth. So the physical is very important. And unfortunately, people may be focusing on the mental and missing the physical.
If I ask you a question, what would be your advice to the CEOs and CXOs when it comes to managing their physical self, well-being for that matter?
It's a challenge. The What I would suggest is get a gym membership. because it is challenging to motivate oneself. And I'm in my office, and right next door is a combination guest room and an exercise room, and we have our elliptical. Now, I used to be on the elliptical religiously and haven't been as much. But what happens though is that when you have a gym membership and you just get yourself in there, you're going to be motivated by seeing others, do things to help them. So take time, usually in the morning, if you can do it early morning, about an hour, all you need, and get there. But if you can't do that, you have a pet, that helps because then you can at least get out in the fresh air and walk, in the morning and when you return from work.
Yeah, it's very, very important to do that short circuit and then kind of rejuvenate. That's extremely important. If you continue to stay in that cycle of stress, then it's really difficult because today's a stress and tomorrow's a stress and the next day is stress. They all continue to compile. So morning and hours time is something that renews you, for the day. Stanley, we are getting into the next dimension, which is the relationship, and it has an element of family also. And if you are comfortable, I can ask that question to you, and I can always chop it out if you don't like.
Or about family.
Yeah. So the question is, every successful leader we met usually, it doesn't things don't happen. There's a family behind a leader, and there's a challenge for a leader to maintain work-life balance, and family in the process supports a lot.
Yeah,
How do you take that?
I agree. So, my wife and I have been married now for 42 years. And certainly there are ups and downs in a marriage. But your partner, I help my wife and she helps me during those challenging times, as it relates to, leadership, in the work environment. And there are times, look, the greatest of leaders have gone through tough times. You'll hear about from Elon Musk, where both SpaceX and Tesla were just about bankrupt, and he was close to suffering a nervous breakdown. So these things happen. And I remember having turned around a company, and we were able to sell the company, and I got cut out of the deal. And it was the first time, this was many years ago, when my wife shared with me that because we're so close, that she felt that I may have been going through a little bit of a depression. These kinds of things happen with leaders. And so she helped me to see, what was going on with me. And I was able to bounce back. In fact, I then moved on to create a news channel, kind of a regional CNN for Philadelphia, that was purchased by a major company called Comcast. And it was a good financial event, but we did some fantastic things many years ago. But having a mate who is very close to you and knows you can be helpful and invaluable especially during those times when it gets really, really tough.
So what's your advice to the CEOs and CXOs when it comes to family and leveraging that privilege that you have of having a family and that support system? What's your thought on that? Any advice?
Well, number one, invest in your family. Don't just expect that they should understand, how busy you are and keep at a distance. Those times will come, but make a special effort to do things for your family. So it was not only my wife, and we would go on vacations and we would do little things, but also the children, and I had two, a daughter now who's a global director at Meta, and I have a son in the music business and one that is in coaching. And so they were in activities. I know with the boys, I played basketball, so they played. And I would
Wow.
take the time and invest the time when they asked me, Dad, why don't you become a coach? And I initially was like, oh, I'm too busy. But I found that coaching was therapeutic for me. And it also helped our relationship. And we just had an outstanding relationship and great memories that to this day we go back to because we were able to do those things together. And it just helped me to become a better person and helped me to become a better leader.
Thank you so much for sharing. I am usually hesitant in asking these questions, but every time I dare, leaders are like, yes, Raj, that's good. And sometimes people say, I want to say thank you to my family. And they have done a great job for me. And so thank you so much. So how do you see compassion as a critical component in today's success for leaders in family?
Absolutely critical because, my philosophy was all about the whole person. It wasn't about just what they do and what they produce at work. So by focusing on helping people to become more resilient, more solutions focused, in the midst of all the challenges that we've had it, in running a company and serving customers, and having them be more collaborative and more positive. It actually helped them at home as well. For one reason was because as we found solutions, it made the workplace more enjoyable because we were able to improve processes in various departments as a group and see the results, see how customer complaints would go down, customer satisfaction and delight improved, and it improved the mood of the people. And they felt they had the power. They knew then that they had the power to improve the service and the customers' lives. And it actually spilled over into their personal lives as well, their home life, because they didn't go home frustrated.
Now we are getting into the thinking zone. Do you agree that leaders' thinking shapes the culture of the entire team? And for the audience, as I mentioned at the beginning, Stanley is an authority on the power thinking. So, how do you see that leaders' thinking shapes the culture of the entire team and also the organization?
Sure. Well, I believe that the team becomes what the leader thinks about. So if the leader thinking when they step into the workplace is all about how do we get the result, then the culture is going to be about only getting the results. But if the leader has a thinking around a focus on empowering the people and having the people feel a sense of ownership in the success of the company, then you won't just hit your results. You'll go way beyond it. And I was able to see that firsthand when we created a culture where people love empowering it.
Since we are talking about thinking, strategies alone cannot make that big impact. It is the thinking that makes the big impact. Do you want to tell us what power thinking is all about? You
Sure.
have done extensive research, you've taught many leaders, trained many leaders, coached many leaders. Do you want to introduce power thinking to our audience?
Sure. So power thinking was formed after all of those years of experience empowering people. And so I named the company Power Thinking. This is the first sign or signal to folks what we're all about. It is helping people to be more aware and to recognize that they have power. Each person has at least one area where they're absolutely excellent. In other areas where they can improve. But each of us has power, and it's tapping into that power that makes a difference. So we acquired a company called Reflective Learning that had the intellectual property rights to material that came out of the University of Pennsylvania's Positive Psychology Center, led by Dr. Martin Seligman, who's considered the father of this
Oh,
new
yes,
school.
I'm a big one for him. Yes.
Yes.
I love that PERMA concept.
So a lot of the material that is taught with power thinking came from that group. Dr. Seligman was a consultant as well as a few members of his team at the Positive Psychology Center at the University of Pennsylvania was a consultant to the company we acquired, Reflective Learning. And they created a
Wow.
6-hour online course called Resilience Online. And through their decades of research, they identified 7 strengths that resilient leaders have and people in general. Their emotion regulation, their impulse control, their empathy, their self-efficacy, the belief that no matter what goes on, that you have power over your ability to succeed, their optimism, their causal analysis, and then they're reaching out. So even as a high level executive, you're going to need to reach out for help. at
Yes.
some point,
True.
and stay connected with people and take action when faced with setbacks and challenges. Then they develop 7 skills so that you heard that I was an athlete. After every day of class, we would have 2 hours of practice, practicing the same things every day, dribbling and shooting and foul shooting, so that it would become muscle memory when we're in a game. Well, we don't do that when it comes to resilience and building those strengths. They identify skills like avoiding thinking traps, 8 of them, where we jump to conclusions with no evidence. Leaders do that. Leaders may mind read where they think they know what other people are thinking.
Yeah.
They may blame others. They may minimize the positive things that are going on, but magnify the negative, don't communicate the negative.
Yes. Yes.
These are thinking traps. And by changing this thinking, it can make us all more effective.
If an organization or a CEO or an individual comes to you, what change they would see in themselves after understanding the power thinking and applying power thinking? How does thinking come as a competitive advantage to the people and to the organization?
It's a tremendous competitive advantage because let's go back to the one skill, avoiding thinking traps. So people can tell when leaders are falling into those traps, even though they may not be able to identify what they are. But if a leader, steps out and says, "Hey, you are not doing your job because the numbers are just, are not where they need to be." And so, a worker may say, "Well, wait a minute. How do you have any evidence?" So I have a leader that'll jump to conclusions about something and have no evidence. So blame me. And that's the other thing where that leader is externalizing. There's another thinking trap, blaming an individual when in many cases, the problem is with the leader. And folks can tell when that happens. We see that with world leaders, unfortunately. And it's very easy for us to be able to pick up the good leaders and the bad leaders because they'll see where leaders may be falling into those traps. Maybe operating another thinking trap is tunnel vision, where there's multiple ways to solve a problem, and they may only be focused on one. So leaders will notice a difference in how they interact with people, how they respond to the adversities that they may be experiencing. Do they constantly blame others, or do they take responsibility for some things as well? So by the time that we take them through understanding the strengths of resilient people and leaders and the skills, they're in an entirely different place, and they'll be more effective with their people.
Stanley, if someone comes to you and says, "Tell me about power thinking," what is it that the person can do that the person can see a difference tomorrow? Is there a starting point which you can give, which people can practice, and they can see the difference tomorrow?
I think the difference that they'll see tomorrow is that they need more work. That by the next day, actually the same day, immediately, when I go through in just 20 minutes what I go through, they'll realize that, wow, I need work. I need to practice these skills, the skills of detecting icebergs. That's a skill that came out of Seligman's group. We have these deep-rooted beliefs about ourselves, about other people, maybe some of our colleagues, that may be hurting us and hurting the company as a leader. And this is where leaders get it wrong. They think, well, wow, I'm the senior C-suite executive in a company, so I must have it all together. I'm smarter than everybody else. I'm more effective than everybody else. And that may not be true. And so one of the first things that they'll come away with is that they may need to learn some new techniques to be even more effective.
So in a way, you're saying it is the emotional intelligence that can always be developed at any stage. So from this conversation, I get a confidence that any leader, is irrespective of the situation they are in, they can enhance their performance by 30-40% if they practice certain leadership skills like about thinking and mindset and about emotional intelligence thoughts.
Yes, they can. And of the 7 skills, in my view, the most effective and where we get the 80% of the value from the 20% of the skill is avoiding the thinking traps, because everything gets back to our thinking.
Thinking.
Our brains are processing 50,000 thoughts a day. 50,000. And 70 to 80% of those thoughts are negative or repetitive. So if we invest the time to be aware of where our thoughts may be going awry, we can then catch ourselves, as opposed to moving to say something or experience a negative emotion. And I'll give an example. You're riding down the road and somebody comes alongside of you and cuts you off, triggers anger. Well, if we change our belief about what just happened, we may not be as angry, or we may eliminate that emotion altogether. And again, it gets back to our beliefs, it gets back to those thoughts. And now being able to say, hey, I may be minimizing the positive. That's our minimizing and magnifying thinking trap. There's 8 of them that were developed by, you may have heard of them, prominent psychologist and one of the fathers of cognitive behavioral therapy, Dr. Aaron Beck. And Dr. Aaron Beck came up with these 8 thinking traps, like jumping to conclusions and mind reading and minimizing the positive and magnifying the negative and externalizing, blaming others, personalizing, beating ourselves up too much, onto tunnel vision, overgeneralizing. All people who look like this are this way, or if they come from this country, then this is what they'll do. And we do that. It's the kind of thing that we do. So by focusing on our thinking traps, where our thinking may be going awry, we can get our effectiveness in moving forward as a leader.
This is a masterclass. Viewers and audience, don't miss. Watch this video till the end. We still have a lot to unfold and to discover from Stanley. So, Stanley, if a CEO watching this interview asks you one question, what should I begin if I want to build a future-ready organization?
Sure. So in terms of being a future-ready organization, let's go back. It goes back to our thinking again. And let's examine the thinking traps. There's one thinking trap that you should be focused on more than any. And that's the thinking trap that I just mentioned, of tunnel vision. And this one is hard to recognize because many times seniors have a lot of experience, but this is where the experience can actually get in the way, because we'll tend, as experienced leaders that have been around for many years, to rely on what we have done and what we have experienced. But at the same time, the world changes.
So, long time back, I got a book in my hand. In the editorial of the first chapter says, if you think you can, you can. And that changed my entire life's philosophy, Stanley. And every time I have to do something, I first think I can, then I do anything else. So, Stanley, thank you for great insights on the power thinking. I'm sure it will leave lasting impression. They will be inquisitive to know more about power thinking. We are making things light now, getting into the rapid fire zone. You will love this one. And there's no right, wrong answer, but it's powerful. Let me know when you are ready.
I'm ready.
One word. When I say a word, tell me the first word that comes to your mind. Leadership. You can expand.
Empowerment.
Mindset.
Our thinking.
Success.
Failure.
Wow. Now, this is binary, this or that. Mindset or a skill?
Mindset.
Discipline or motivation?
Motivation.
That was a big one. Is speed or wisdom?
Wisdom.
Experience or curiosity?
Curiosity.
Purpose or profit?
Purpose.
Thank you. Great insights. We're getting into the next one, which is complete a sentence. Leadership begins with
compassion.
Young professionals should never stop
learning.
Wow. And the next segment is another interesting one, is true and false. Leaders usually enjoy this section, so mindset can be developed.
True.
Positive thinking alone creates success.
False.
Empathy will become the most valuable asset.
True.
Future belongs to a lifelong learner.
True.
This is kind of affirmation. Now we are getting into the next zone, which is the prediction. One workplace habit that will disappear.
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Okay, let me ask the next one. One human quality AI will never replace. You will love this one.
Empathy.
Why do you say that?
Because empathy is a human quality.
one opportunity that leaders should seize today?
That is self-development.
Fantastic. Now we're transitioning into the next about the future of leadership, and this is from the power thinking perspective or in general. How do you believe leadership itself will evolve over the next decades? How does the future look like to you?
We're actually going to have to be more connected with our fellow human beings and more focused on what is called the emotional intelligence. Because machines will produce, many of the results, but the people, are going to be in better position to take care of other. You can't rely on machines to do that. So, our what is now called soft skills are going to be absolutely essential going forward.
So, one connected question, this is from the organizational perspective. What responsibilities do you think CEOs, CXOs, and senior executives have towards protecting the mental well being of their people?
I think it's a huge responsibility. And I think what we're going to see over time is that when we, in fact, focus on the mental well-being of our people, that it translates. It is not just something that, you're just helping them to feel good, but it translates to results that you may not have even thought was possible. They'll not only hit your objectives, but they'll far exceed if you focus on helping them with their emotional intelligence, with their mental well-being.
If if you were speaking directly to the CEOs and CXOs, what would be your final message to them?
My final message is invest in yourself, in embracing change, in truly connecting with your people, getting to know them, having the compassion, the empathy, and trusting and empowering them, to take your company to levels that you haven't seen. You will see a difference. You will actually reduce your own stress levels because you have delegated and empowered others.
That was a profound insight, Stanley. We are now getting into the young talent segment, which is at the core of my heart. One of the objectives of this conversation is to bring forth insights that would help our youngsters, the freshers, people in the college, people in the schools. What do you think the kind of mindset they should develop to be successful in the future in the corporate world?
This is a little more complicated today than it used to be because what I found with a number of younger people is that they are very, very focused on their devices. I can recall with my own children, there was a time when devices, when text messaging was introduced, that they wouldn't take phone calls. And so the idea of the listening to the pitch of someone's voice and being able to make sure that they had the appropriate context of what was being communicated, that was gone because they didn't answer the phones and take the voice call and would only communicate via text. And we were trained, parents were trained to communicate via text. Something was lost. And we started to see more of that go away as, essential communications were being communicated via social media and via text. So I would encourage our young folks to, especially in a world now where there's going to be more, AI and communications between machines to connect more with your fellow human beings. You're going to need that.
So, for our young talent, what are your recommendations for top 3 skills that are important for them to be relevant in the future?
Well, I think there are skills that they're going to need to be aware of. They can actually regulate their emotions and impulses and their empathy for others, avoiding the erroneous thinking. And I've seen it over the past few days with a few distant family members where fell into thinking traps, unfortunately, made something that wasn't a big issue a major catastrophe. Or they may have minimized all the positive things that were going on. So these thinking traps is something that folks are going to, especially young people, are going to have to, delve into, learn, understand, because through that, you'll be able to have power over your own thinking and how you respond to life's inevitable setbacks.
Great. So, any last big message to the world? I mean, when I say world, it is leaders, managers, CEOs, CXOs, young talent. Any last thought that you want to leave them with?
Well, the last part is that we put a lot of work into the assets that we acquired that were connected to University of Pennsylvania's Positive Psychology Center. We created a app, the Power Thinking Corp, Power Thinking Space CORP mobile app that's constantly feeding our members with rich mental protein, with positive messaging, with micro lessons around along the lines of what I shared with you all today, so that we can be more aware of what's going on in our heads and what's happening in our hearts with our deep rooted beliefs, how to challenge those beliefs, how to keep ourselves calm under pressure, and how to put life in perspective. That comes through the messaging in our Power Thinking Corp app. So I would advise you to check it out. You get a free trial and you don't have to go anywhere and sit for hours. The messaging will be coming to you.
Fantastic. Stanley, thank you so much. It's been a profound discussion, very insightful discussion. A lot of insights, great thought leadership. I think the discussions were all around across generations, across levels, across dimensions. We discussed so much about you, your personal life, relationship mastery, the team mastery, organizational mastery, and how the mindset and thinking helps, how in particular the power thinking, your discovery. Thank you so much for sharing your thought leadership, Stanley. Truly, truly appreciate. This has been far more than a leadership conversation, I think. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your experience, and your heart with us. Thank you again for every insight that you shared, and to everyone watching this show. How did you like the conversation, Stanley?
How did I like the conversation? This was tremendous. I thank you, Saraj, for this opportunity. You're so busy doing the things that you do that you rarely kind of go back and think about how you got there. Think about the people that you've helped, and you've given me an opportunity to do that, and I appreciate it.
And I truly appreciate you intuitively understanding and accepting my request to connect and talk to me and share your experience. And the world becomes very small when people from one country to another country connect and share ideas. And that is the purpose of Saraj Unleashing Talent for and Unlocking Potential for Optimal Performance. Thank you for joining on in the line of Fire with Saraj, a CEO, CXO, and thought leadership series from Saraj Unleashing Talent. This podcast will be available on our channel, Saraj Unleashing Talent, across YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, and your favorite podcast channel. Thank you, Stanley, once again on behalf of our audience and listeners. Truly appreciate your time.
It was an honor to be here with you, Saraj. Thank you so much.